You're Superman?
Kinda.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and today we are finally going to dive deep into what we believe is one of the best and most underrated DC projects that has ever been made.
The post-credits scene of Black Adam.
No.
Wonder Woman 1984.
Nope.
The 2002 television series Birds of Prey from the WB TV network.
I am not, although that show was pretty great. I am talking about the incredible 4-season run of the CW's Superman and Lois. In February of 2021, the CW would premiere the pilot episode of a series that would showcase Tyler Hoechlin as the heroic titular character, along with Elizabeth Tulloch portraying his celebrity journalist wife, Lois Lane. And I gotta tell you guys, ever since I saw Superman's first save in this version of Metropolis, I was hooked.
Thanks. Cool costume.
Thanks. My mom made it for me.
We are automatically given a comic-accurate suit, a shot that resembles the cover of Superman's first appearance in Action Comics #1, and super impressive borderline cinematic effects. But before we cover the reason why this particular show worked perfectly and why its existence was doomed from the beginning, we're going to do a super quick rundown of all 4 seasons. So if you haven't watched, be warned, there will be spoilers ahead. The show kicks off in a montage of everything we already know about Superman and Clark Kent with a few new details. Kal-El comes to Earth as a baby, lands in Smallville, Kansas, and then is adopted by Jonathan and Martha Kent. Clark moves to Metropolis, meets Lois Lane, then reveals who he is, they get married, have twin boys. That's right, Superman. These brothers are completely opposite. Jonathan is super popular, very outgoing, loves sports, while Jordan is more emotional. He lashes out and was diagnosed with having a social anxiety disorder. When we first meet them, neither of the boys have superpowers, and neither of them know that their dad is the one and only Superman. After the sudden death of Martha Kent, the family moves to Smallville, into the house that Clark grew up in. After the twins survive an accident that should have killed them, they become super suspicious and ultimately discover Clark's spaceship, as well as his secret identity.
You're saying you're Superman? No, I've seen Superman before. We've seen him.
And guys, I am so excited to show you these new shirts that we just launched for our merch store. Now, we made these special for the movies that are coming out next month. First, check out the July 2025 shirt showing 2 rockets passing each other, the Fantastic Four and Kal-El's. And then we have Brian from Family Guy as Crypto, who's a good boy. And for the Fantastic Four, we have this parody of them on Abbey Road, but hey, where's Sue Storm at? And then we have the Fantastic Four as the Jetsons, celebrating the retro future aesthetic of the film, as well as Clobber in Time, Flame On, and this image of The Thing as John Carpenter's The Thing. And if you become a member, you can earn rewards and get free stuff. I just want to thank you guys so much for your support, and the links for those are below.
Jeez, that just sounds like a high-quality program.
Yes, but what was it about the show that made it so beloved? Aside from the Easter eggs and the cool visuals, why did this show work? And more importantly, why was its greatness wasted on a failing television network? One reason was the return to Smallville. For the first time since the Tom Welling show ended, Superman was placed in a small town with a community of characters that brought a sense of humbleness to the 4 years it was on the air. The community itself resembles hundreds of small towns across the world that feel ignored by mainstream media. These towns look after each other, defend what is theirs, and never back down from a fight. It's Smallville that made Clark who he is. Close-knit towns like these deserve their time in the spotlight, and the show proves that anyone, anywhere, can be the Superman of their town regardless of having power or not. Another element that made this show great was the effects themselves. The CGI used in Superman and Lois rivals most theatrical renditions of Superman that have 9-figure budgets. Seeing such awesome quality on TV kept bringing fans back for more. I mean, look at these Doomsday renditions. These scenes allowed us to see Superman kick all kinds of ass on a weekly basis, instead of having to re-watch the same films over and over again.
Save Martha!
And while the parental and intimate relationship between Lois and Clark is one of the best ever portrayed, I mean seriously, their chemistry was insane, there's the brother relationship between Jonathan and Jordan to consider.
What you do is you put your shoulder into her and you push.
And they fall over.
We cannot begin to express how refreshing it is to see these two brothers who actually love and care for one another. Television today is plagued with sibling rivalries, but throughout this series, you can see that even though the power dynamics between the jock Jonathan and the jittery Jordan are reversed, these twins always have each other's back. Many Superman fans know that Clark grew up alone, unable to share his true feelings about most things due to having to keep who he was a secret. So to see these boys support each other during their traumatic teenage years gives us all fuzzy fuzzy feelings knowing that the Kent boys don't have to suffer through anything by themselves, much like their father had to do.
Yeah, person, I'm confused. Isn't this the same network that had the guy with the bow and arrow and the fast guy? Why would they cancel a show so great?
Well, to understand that,
It's always best to start at the beginning.
the CW is a television network that was created way back in 2006 when the WB and UPN networks decided to form a merger. The CW was born and quickly became a powerhouse for teenage dramas like The Gilmore Girls and fanciful shows like Supernatural and one standalone detective comic show called Smallville. Smallville was a show that aired for 10 seasons, surpassing 200 episodes. This showcased a young Clark Kent growing up in his hometown, which also happens to be littered with fragments of kryptonite, making some of the townsfolk both superpowered and super crazy. Smallville introduced a new era of fandom to characters like Oliver Queen, Barry Allen, John Johns, Arthur Curry, Lana Lang, and many, many more DC favorites. It gave new fans insights into many different DC stories and even went on to have cameos by the man himself, Christopher Reeve.
You must write your own destiny, Kal-El.
Smallville paved the way for a new generation of television that would consist of multiple interconnected spin-off shows that would assemble in what was called the Arrowverse.
This is my cousin Clark. I'm so glad you get to meet.
Are you puffing out your chest? Yes.
Producer Greg Berlanti would change the landscape of TV by giving us shows like Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Black Lightning, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, and Stargirl.
Man, that's a lot of shows.
Well, that's what fans loved about the CW. It kept us fed. Several of these shows would go on for multiple seasons, sometimes having 20+ episodes, giving audiences tons of stories that were all intertwined with each other. Green Arrow would show up in The Flash would show up in Supergirl, Supergirl and Arrow, etc., etc.
But that's kind of like the MCU today.
Well, right you are, my friend. Much like the MCU, the Arrowverse dealt with different universes, different variants of the same heroes, and even led to a major television event called Crisis on Infinite Earths, where, just like in the comics, all of these DC heroes would travel to different Earths in the hope of restoring balance and peace across the cosmos.
Crisis on Infinite Earths.
And that's another reason why Superman and Lois worked so well. It was the last DC show greenlit for the CW, and by the time it aired, the other shows in the Arrowverse were all wrapping up their series. So, other than a handful of times across 4 years, Superman and Lois did not need any of the other Arrowverse shows to draw audiences in, which, after almost a decade with stories of the same characters, it was refreshing to see a DC show become successful as an almost standalone series.
Okay, well, if it's so successful like you're saying, how come they're not making no more episodes?
Well, you gotta remember the Arrowverse was around for nearly a decade, and many of those fans who would tune in every week weren't coming back like they did in the beginning. Streaming started to take over, and to keep a series alive on network television, you need to be able to draw in millions of live viewers to make money off of the commercial advertising within the episode.
Ah yes, capitalism.
So long story short, viewership was majorly down. Mix that with the chaotic state that was once the DCEU, the major creative shakeup at DC Studios, and the CW being sold to a company called Nexstar, Superman and Lois seemed to be doomed from the beginning. But something happened that execs at the CW, DC, and Warner Brothers didn't expect. The fans came back.
Well, well, well.
In fact, it was one of the most watched shows the CW has had in the last 5 years.
Well, so then why did they cancel it?
Well, because even though the numbers were good for Superman and Lois, it's not like they were peak CW viewership numbers like in the early days. They were impressive, but the show was ultimately too expensive and the CW started transitioning into more unscripted content than focusing on higher budget scripted material.
Boy, ah yes, capitalism.
Well, yeah, that and James Gunn.
Excuse me, the James Gunn? Director of Guardians of the Galaxy, lover of dogs, how could there such a thing?
Well, if we know one thing about James Gunn, every decision he creatively makes serves an overall bigger purpose.
Continue. When
Gunn and Peter Safran became the co-presidents of DC Studios, Gunn announced in a video to fans that under their leadership, they would be wiping the DC slate clean and begin producing brand new projects aimed at intertwining all DC stories going forward, in the hopes of following the MCU and Star Wars model. This new direction kicked off with Creature Commandos and will continue with Gunn's debut DCU film Superman, set to be released in July of 2025. And while everybody's mega hyped for Gunn's Superman movie, the ongoing DC shows at the CW would clash with the creative vision that he aims to establish for his new DC studios. All of that mixed with the failing CW, the global pandemic, and a industry-wide strike that lasted for almost a year, and the fate of Superman and Lois was ultimately sealed.
Bring out your dead!
After the show's third season, the CW announced that Superman and Lois would be renewed for a fourth and final time. This would allow creatives to wrap up their stories and give the characters and fans a proper send-off, which honestly is a lot more than most shows get today. I mean, how many of us have fallen in love with a show for it to just be canceled after one season? I mean, this doesn't mean that James Gunn hated the series or the CW. In fact, Gunn allowed the usage of the character Krypto the dog in Superman and Lois's finale to emphasize the importance of emotional support animals. And that is just the kind of thing that someone who understands the entirety of Superman would do, giving us all hope for the future of the DC slate. But what do you guys think? Did you watch Superman and Lois? Did you watch Smallville? Let us know your favorite DC show down in the comments below. And of course, big shout out to Mr. Adam Lloyd for writing this video. He's really handsome. You should all follow. Wait, what? You can find his links in the comments below. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.